Hello, hello, hello. Hello, my good people out there in the world. Welcome again to the Sonic Host Coast to Coast podcast. We are back. I am always joined by the illustrious Malzilla. How are you today, Malzilla?
I'm doing good, Radrey, and shout out to all our fine coasters out there who are once again tuning in either through YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however our dear coasters consume their podcasts to listen to our dulcet tones as we talk about one Sonic T Hedgehog.
All right. Yeah, so we are back again. For this episode, we are going to talk a little bit more about the trailer. We're going to talk a little bit about salaries, that they make in it's not this, I guess, just in Hollywood, or particularly with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. And was there anything else? I mean, we also have our main event is our SatAM review, which we recorded prior to this recording, but we had a bit of an audio issue. What happened was we had some sort of thing where I recorded my voice, but I didn't record Malzilla's voice, so it would have been unlistenable. I guess, or maybe we could have done a thing where I just have you say the lines, and then it's just tons of fucking editing for me. I don't know.
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like it was a shame because we wanted to get that out to y'all like in the beginning of August, but before we kind of had to deal with all of our stuff. But we're here, we're back. It's another time with feeling.
Yeah. So, was there anything else in the agenda? Those are the two things that I have written down:
Um,
trailer
yeah,
talk
it's basically
and movie
we'll talk a
salaries.
little bit about a couple things regarding the Sonic movie 3. That's still the hot stuff, and then we'll jump into the SatAM Bonanza. But before that, again, make sure to follow us on social media, Tumblr, X, Twitter. We now have a Blue Sky. So let me pull that up for you. Also, if you're on the Blue Sky, you can follow us at what is our at the Sonic Hosts C2C .bsky.social. So yeah, we're here. We're posting memes. I'm trying to be funny, and yeah, come join us. And of course, always feel free to join us on the Discord. Come be a part of the conversation.
Thumbs up for funny. That's all I can say.
We try. We
Yes.
try.
Yeah. We are good funny. Funny good. Yeah, so I guess without further ado, one thing we wanted to talk about was prior to this episode, before we were talking a little bit about the Sonic 3 trailer that came up. We did a really, really thorough deep dive analysis that was probably way too long, probably for some of our listeners. I imagine some of you probably want a shorter, a shorter show because probably, or unless, I don't know. I mean, it's I know we're still in the infancy of making the show, so it's us getting wearing new shoes and trying to see where they take us, before they get a mind of their own. I don't know where this metaphor is going. But pretty much what happened is we recorded a thorough episode of talking about the trailer, and one thing we mentioned in it was there were Japanese subtitles in the Japanese trailer, not the international one, where I guess actually no, I take that back. I guess that if you were, because I live in Japan, I'm always used to, because I used to work in production, and there'd always be two types of trailers. There would be the Japanese one, and then there'd be the international one. But now I'm realizing, no wait, this movie's from America, so it is the international one. Anyway, the thing is that I think there were some plot points that we missed in the Japan trailer because the subtitles kind of tell us something a little different. To tell you guys a little bit, something to point out, what I think is particularly interesting that Malzil and I were talking about was
And I was right.
he was right.
I
He
was
was right.
vindicated.
Uh, when we see the shot of Prison Island from afar, before we go to Shadow and his cryogenic, how do you pronounce that?
Cryogenic.
Cryogenic. Who comes up with these words? Anyway, the cryogenic chamber, like the one where you can see through, and the Metroid looking thing. I hope you know what I'm talking about. My peeps out there. Anyway, there is a little subtitle that says, at a certain location off of Tokyo Bay. I mean, I could read it in Japanese for you, but probably like most of our listeners, you're probably just going to push the translate button. Maybe you won't.
You know,
Maybe you won't. If you actually want to know some of the Japanese, I'd be happy to teach you.
yeah,
Now,
it's
Zilla,
one of those
sorry, I was about to
things
cut you off. What are you going to say?
I was gonna say is, it is interesting. Just a bit of a kind of a tangent, but not really. But it's one of those things where now in this day and age, where so many things are in, you know, one language is getting translated to another language, and sometimes these languages have zero in common. English and Japanese kind of being the main thing, where there's a lot of things like humor that gets lost in translation. So it is interesting to see with this trailer, because I've watched it in Japanese and then, watching it in English, and kind of from what you've told me, some of the things that show up in one language but don't show up in the other, that are kind of, they're interesting, tidbits, and can confirm some, quote unquote leaks that came out earlier in the year, about a month or so before the actual trailer.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, that is a thing. Please don't mind my cynicism. It's just I would really like more people to learn Japanese. I kind of feel like, because Sonic as being, some people, they love to argue this talking point of how Sonic is such a Japanese product, but yet I don't see anyone really, diving into the nuance of the language, to further understand this character, and I find that very frustrating. Because, one thing I will say, I love learning Japanese. I think the language is beautiful. I like learning new things about it every day. It is frustrating as hell to learn. And I'm not saying it's like all enjoyable, but in this case, I mean, I guess you could probably say this with probably any language. Maybe they revealed a plot point, given, like, if the trailer's in Swedish or if it's in French or something, right? But I will say this. Um, a lot of the times movies that come from, like, other places that are outside Japan, like foreign films, when they come to Japan, sometimes they translate the movie and they give away the entire plot, or they tell you the entire story. Because I remember back when,
You know,
like, yes,
what's funny is, like, you mentioned that, it's like I remember watching some trailers for a couple anime movies, and just seeing Americans bitch and moan that they're spoiling the entire movie in the trailer, and I'm just telling people, hey, different cultures have different views on certain things, and
oh
you
yeah,
know,
tell me about it.
and I've seen, especially with Japanese trailers, is they're not so much concerned with, like, you know the mystery in this, and you know the expectations of the film. They just want to show you the cool shit, so you make sure you show up and buy the ticket.
Yeah, pretty much. Uh, yeah, because there was actually one extra point I wanted to bring up, that there is another scene in the film, or excuse me, not in the film, in the trailer, mind you. I got to keep reminding myself it's called a trailer. There's a name for this. There's terminology, Radley. Forgive me. Uh, they have another couple of things in the trailer. Now you may notice that the movie in Japan is called Tokyo Mission. Now, what's particularly interesting about this is that there's one line that Shadow says. Correct me if I'm wrong with this, Malzil, but he says, "Once we're done, there will be nothing left." How does the line go?
Something to that extent.
Okay, so in Japanese, the subtitle is different. Um,
Oh,
there is other things that, I guess for like localization, where like they kind of skip past a lot of the jokes because like, American humor in particular is very hard to translate for Japanese audiences.
Oh, and
Um,
vice versa. And vice versa. I've listened to a lot of podcasts about how um when they're dubbing anime into English, especially the writers who do a lot of Japanese puns, how
mhm.
they've, it usually back in the day before people really cared, they would just localize the crap out of them, the dubs. But now, as people want a more authentic dub, they're running into these, language problems where it's like, example for those of our listeners who are, for our coasters that are My Hero Academia fans, there was a joke early in the series where Katsuki Bakugo, is naming his hero like the Great Explosion Murder. But the whole thing is that it's a whole pun on his name because it was it Bakatsu is explosion in Japanese.
Yeah, that's right.
So his name is Bakugo Katsuki. So it was a pun, and everyone was. It kind of went over a lot of English speaking's heads why the scene. Everyone thought the scene was funny when again, it's a language pun, which again, it makes sense in one language, not so much in the other.
Yeah. Yeah, so with that in mind, the subtitle for that one reads, well, here's me speaking Japanese on an English podcast, but it says, このミッションが、終われば、すべては、消えるさる, which means after this mission is finished, everyone will be erased. Or everyone will be disappeared. So what I
That's
imagine,
interesting.
since the title is called Tokyo Mission, um, I imagine the story probably is surrounding that there's something important in Tokyo that um, they have to do, or I could be very wrong. Maybe it could just be that Shadow lives in Tokyo, or he lives on
Well,
that.
here's my theory.
Okay.
So this is gonna throw a little maybe potential spoiler warning for those
Yeah,
who are
cover your ear,
so
kids.
cover your kids. I've been listening to the dark voices from the void of the internet, and that can be a good thing and a bad thing at times. But according to some of the stuff that I've heard, is that, and now that we know it's confirmed that Prison Island is either somewhere in Tokyo Bay or off the coast of Tokyo Bay, because we do see in the trailer Shadow like basically doing his best Jesus impersonation and running on water or
Hmm.
skating on water.
Yeah.
Is that according to some Twitter sources that when Shadow breaks out or whoever breaks Shadow out, the first thing he's doing is he's looking for Maria. So if he's off the coast of Japan, it seems like that fight between him, Tails, Sonic, and Knuckles is really early on in the film. Like that might be within the first 30 minutes of the film, which is kind of crazy. And also, I kind of noticed when they meet up with Stone, it looks like they're in Tokyo. So I think, and this is all pure speculation on my part, is I think it's going to happen is that Sonic and Tails are going to get called from Green Hill, where we first see them doing their little obstacle course thing, which seems to be now a reoccurring motif in these movies. And then they're going to get called into Tokyo, and then they're going to find Shadow, and Shadow's going to beat their ass. And then they're going to, I guess, maybe meet up with, the gun commander in the Chow Garden restaurant. Chow E Cheese, if you will.
Hmm.
And and then eventually they're going to eventually make their way to England, where it seems like the stand-in for the space colony arc is in the middle of the Thames River, and then it kind of goes into space, and then they'll do the last arc in space. So that's my speculation. We'll get a little globe hopping, which is nice.
I'd say that probably checks out. So I guess yeah, Malzo is gonna get some brownie points if he's right about this plot.
I'm all
How much do
knowing.
you wager?
my soul.
Oh wow! Don't do that.
Oh no, the thing is, like,
500 yen.
my soul. The thing is, my soul is already like owned by multiple entities, so it's kind of like it's not controlling interest in my soul, but
Yeah.
a little, it's you get the yearly newsletter of, oh, as an owner of Malzilla's soul, he'll be able to say, hey, this is what he's done. Here's your expected rate of return.
You should have never signed up for Facebook. That's all I'm saying.
Pretty much, amongst
No.
other things.
Zuckerberg. No, I can't.
Zuckerberg.
I can't do like a what is it? What's that? Like a Braveheart shot where he's like freedom, and they have like the
Freedom!
camera pan all the way up. You can't really do that on a podcast because it's an audio show. I don't know what the audio equivalent of that is, but yeah, that's
Wilhelm scream.
a Wilhelm screen. I don't
I don't know.
know.
I'm just bullshitting.
Okay. Um. Anyway. So let's see. Anything else to talk about the trailer? I mean, oh, there's one other part where Jim Carrey says "pep pep pop pop" as "pep pep" as a pop pop. What was it at the end?
It's in English. It sounds like he says "pop pop,"
Pop
which
is
again,
pop
I
pop.
think,
Does pop pop mean grandpa?
I guess for some. I mean, again, the various, however culturally and geographically, people call certain things by certain names. So, like, most people familiar with the Sonic franchise kind of already knew that Jim Carrey's playing Gerald, his grandfather. Though some were convinced that, well, maybe they're going to tweak things around because it's the movie. They don't have to play. They don't have to pay 100%. They can adjust things. So they maybe thought, oh, this is his father. And like, no, it is his grandfather because, like as you said, they refer. Eggman refers to him as grandfather, Oba or OG-san, right?
Right. Yeah, well, they say OG's on the title. And I just, while you were explaining that, I went to Google and I typed in, what does pop pop mean? And according to Google AI, it sent me to a Quora thing that said, nickname for grandfather. So maybe it's on us. We should have known this from the beginning, Malzilla. I don't know. I've never heard that word pop pop before used for grandpa. Maybe that's like a regional thing. I'm not
I
sure.
think it's a regional thing.
Where do they say that?
It feels very Midwesterner.
It does seem Midwesterner. You Midwesterners, if you're listening to this show, tell us why do you say pop pop? I'm guessing they probably don't know. Why do they call a water fountain a bubbler in Wisconsin?
So it's
Why?
funny that we're talking about Midwestern. I'm gonna throw a little shout out to a YouTube comedian,
Okay.
Charlie Burns. His whole like comedian is his Midwesternisms,
Okay.
and he tells a funny story of how he went to school for journalism, and he went into he got doing like the weekend news in Texas, and it
Okay.
was a heat wave, and again, there's like, and he's saying, he's like, remember, folks, keep your bubbler on handy, because again, he's from Midwest. So him, bubbler is a water fountain, but bubbler is also slang for like a bong. So he said he got fired for drug promoting drugs on the local TV when it
Come
was
on.
just it's funny. Again, he's really funny. He his best joke
It's
is
not
the
something to fire
Midwestern.
somebody over, but whatever.
It's Texas. They find reasons, but
Don't live in
his
Texas
best
then.
yeah gosh, yeah. His best joke is the Midwestern goodbye, and if you don't know what that is, Google it. It will make it's really funny. The Midwest goodbye. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and put that in our Discord, so you should join our Discord so you can learn about the Midwestern goodbye.
Yeah, you don't even need to touch Google. Hooray!
You just got to
Well, I don't know. Discord's owned by Google, so they'll find you.
pretty much.
They'll find you. They know where you live. Like literally, they know where you live. It's really kind of freaky. Don't let it freak
It's
you
not
out.
hard.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
You're comfortable. You're beautiful, and everything you do is great. So don't worry about it too much. Let's move on with the show. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk about something else that makes us uncomfortable. Money.
And our lack
Mozilla.
of it.
Yeah. We kind of talk about that a little bit. Why don't you dive into
So,
that topic?
this is interesting because money is always one of those things. What you say, you never talk about salaries, religion, blah blah blah, and but as our world becomes more interconnected, as information becomes more accessible, we learn the in and outs. We learn how the sausage gets made, if you will, of certain industries. And in the movie industry, one of those aspects is, well, these movies are making millions upon millions of dollars. Where is that money going? Now, if you're cynical and or realist, depending on how you want to view it, most of that money is going into the pockets of the studios or the owner or the IP owners or however you want to swing it.
Mm-hmm.
But also the costs of the movie, you know, range from kind of the obvious like actors, set designers, cinematographers, audio techs, to the caterers, stage techs, and so on and so forth. So, recently, within the last couple of days, at least at the time of this recording, some leaked supposed salaries for the movie has been released regarding the main actors. So, we're kind of, start at the bottom and work our way to the top, or should we start at the top and work our way to the bottom? What do you think, Radrey?
Let's start at the bottom.
Okay, so starting at the bottom is Kristen Ritter, again, of Breaking Bad and Jessica Jones fame.
She's
She's
paid
playing
that
direct.
less, huh? I guess she doesn't have that much of a role.
Well, it's interesting that she's actually made this, because apparently, like, old Adam Pally, the Maddie's sister, Randall and Rachel and Jojo are in it as well. And
Mm-hmm.
they're not even on the list. So they're obviously making less, as well as Sophia Perna and that guy from Mad Men. Who's
Okay.
So this is just some of them. So Kristen Ritter again, who's playing director Rockwell, which is interesting because I thought the other guy was the leader. She's getting paid $300,000, which a lot more money than I make, but I get it. Colleen O'Shaughnessy, we love Colleen, Tails' voice actress. She's getting paid $350,000. Tika Sumter, aka Maddie Wachowski, is getting paid $400,000. Ben Schwartz, the voice of the titular hedgehog, is getting paid $500,000. James Marsden is getting paid $1 million. Idris is getting paid $3 million for Knuckles, and the top two are Keanu Reeves as Shadow for $5 million,
Yeah.
and then Jim is getting paid $12 million for playing Dr. Robotnik and Gerald Robotnik. So he's basically $6 million per Robotnik. Which, if you do some research, because this is kind of one of those things where a lot of the general talk about this has been, of course, very true. Voice actors, female actresses getting less pay than their, or voice actors not getting the respect compared to regular actors, and of course, female actors making less compared to their male counterparts. So this, that, whatever, as well as the fact that there's a lot of different ways you can cut this pie, and there's a lot of different viewpoints from it. So I'm going to play a little Mephiles advocate on this case. So how it breaks down to is that we have Jim is playing, Jim's the main star of these movies that, he has carried this franchise, at least in the view of the, the general public and most of, critical review. So he's getting paid $12 million for a dual role. So he's doing double duty. And I'll be honest, that's pretty respectable. Most leading actors of the A-list tier are usually racking in around 20 million a film. Like that's a typical salary for like The Rock and other, A-list actors. Though sometimes you do get like the apparently like Robert Downey Jr. made 75 million for Avengers Endgame in his base salary, and God knows how much Disney's paying for him to come and play Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday. So you get some outliers with that, but 20 million seems to be A-list standard. Now I could be wrong. And also Jim is pretty much the big name of the cast. Now Keanu and Idris, they're big names as well. Keanu's making 5. Keanu's been one of those guys where like he will take less money if he's invested. Apparently, like he's made like
You
20...
saying he's not invested?
What?
You
He's
saying
kind of...
you saying he's not invested?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he is. I've heard rumors that he turned down a role for Star Wars for this, so maybe maybe he
Wow.
is like maybe he's in. He's in, but I did read something like of all the millions like he got out of John Wick, he made most of it from John Wick 4. So,
Could you imagine like how this probably went? I have this like picture in my head where like they say, we could talk to Keanu. Maybe you could like meet up with him. He's eating dinner here. Let's go ask him if he's if he's interested in being in this movie, right? Uh, like imagine like they go up, hey Keanu, would you like to play Shanna the Hedgehog? And he just looks at it, like he probably doesn't know what this is. And he just looks at it, he goes, okay. And so, and so they
well,
go
no,
back and
like
you know what I mean?
the vision in my head is like, like Disney and Lucasfilm like, let's go get Keanu Reeves to play a Jedi, and him Tim's like, no, they're like, why not? I'm gonna go play Shadow the Hedgehog, and he gets on his motorcycle and drives away. He's like, I'd rather play a hedgehog than a Jedi.
It might be
That'd be kind of
that.
funny.
I don't know. I mean,
Um,
it's hard to
yeah.
say how this stuff really happens or what goes behind it because
Like I,
it's
I did read that like Keanu, like back in the early 2000s when the Matrix trilogy was coming out, like he negotiated so like off Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revelations, he made his salary for the two combined was like $120 million for like that time of frame. So that's a lot of money. Idris is an interesting one because he's 3 million. He's a big name. He's a big star. I think what happened is that he's got some kind of combined deal where like, he got paid probably like 6-7 millions for the Knuckles TV show. And then, it's like, oh yeah, we'll pay you like 10 million total. And it'll be like 7 million for these episodes and then like 3 million for the movie. And he's like, okay, sure, whatever, I'll get like a cut. Marsden is, I think, even at his peak, he's still kind of a B grade actor. Like he's been in some things. He hasn't really like starred in any big things lately. But, a million, checks out. A lot of people are upset that Ben Schwartz is only making $500,000. He's playing Sonic. Ben's got a lot of interesting income flows because he's in TV a lot. He does a lot of voice work. He does a lot of physical acting. So, and I'm sure he's probably taking a pay cut in his base. I'm sure he's getting residuals from the box office because he's been doing so much social media work, legwork for these films. And yeah, he's getting, that's a base. That's he's probably ending up with more. It is kind of, Tika, I love her role as Maddie. I wish she had been more in the Knuckles show, but she's also she's not really. I think the only thing I know that she's been in was she was in some HBO show with Queen Latifah. So I think she's a good actress. I'd like to see her in more, but again, she doesn't have a whole lot of, bargaining, clout at the negotiation table. Colleen's an interesting thing because I was reading up that this is kind of one of those things where two things can be true. where yes, she should be paying a lot more for playing playing Tails, which is a prominent character in the franchise. But, reading that, you know, even like the high end voice actors in America maybe will make roughly 100,000 a year, and so she's making triple that for maybe about two weeks of VA work. So, on one hand, get paid, Colleen. I wish I could make three. I wish I could make triple my yearly salary in a couple weeks. Except then I'd lose all the taxes. But yeah,
This sounds all like hustling, man. This all sounds like
it's
hustling.
Hollywood. It's Hollywood. It's
Hollywood
either you're
hustle.
hustling. It's the Hollywood hustle. Isn't that like a movie?
It should be. If it not,
It should.
It is.
That's what we'll do. We're gonna make a movie. We're gonna write it. It's gonna be called The Hollywood Hustle.
Fair.
A Sonic coast to coast production. The Hollywood Hustle.
All right.
Anywho, so that's kind of all I really had to say on that. It's a bigger, and we're just listing off some talking points. It's a whole bigger issue. There's a lot more things involved, things that we are aware and not aware of. But yeah.
Well, I guess that has to transition us into our main topic for today.
Yeah, we're about to jump back in the DeLorean, and head ourselves back to 1993.
Yeah, because the first SatAM episode came out in December 11th, 1993, from what I know.
Actually, let me pull that up.
Or at least...
Oh!
I'm sorry,
I did...
I guess we should probably state, the way we're recording this show is we're doing it in a way to where we're going by episode... Or what is it? How are we doing the show? Because, we're doing it by production code date, not by air date. Because this pilot episode came out, it was one of the last episodes of the season. So it came out I can't remember, I don't know.
It came out in November 1993, and that's the episode we're going to be talking about, Heads or Tails, which is the pilot, where is the Sonic Boom. So let me reverse that. So the pilot was aired in November of 93. And that is kind of like the pilot first episode. The first episode that was originally aired was in September 18th, 1993. So almost, 32 years ago. Let's see, we're 2024 minus 1993. So, 31 years ago, almost to the date, by a week or so, to the first episode, which was Supersonic. But that was actually the fifth episode in production. And so the first real episode, production number 1 was aired in September 25th, 93, which was Sonic Boom. Not the cartoon or not the song, but the episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Not very creative with these names in the Sonic franchise, are there?
Well, I mean, I think if you read the Archie comic, right, you could tell they weren't given a lot of direction, and it was one of these things where it's we're saying, can we do this? Can we do that? I don't know. Give it a try and see if they don't say no. Because I don't know. It sounds like they kind of have the same situation with Sega, or at least from what I understand, is they're really quick to say no, but they're not going to really tell them what to do. Do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, again, really, if you think about it, this is, the show really went into production in 92, which again was probably right off the heels of Sonic 2. And, Sonic CD was still in production. The franchise was in such its infancy that, Sega of Japan just was really focused on making the games, which is, smart. While Sega of America was kind of we have a legit franchise out of this. We need to, build the lore. We need to, establish things. And of course, we all know how that kind of ended up or
Yeah,
getting
well,
tossed out.
well, no, I mean, I don't know. I think it's always good to go back to the past, see what happened and what and how it reflects what the future is. That way, it kind of gives us, it paints us a picture of what could have happened or what was potentially going to happen. Because I mean, people love digging stuff up from the past with this franchise. Like see how many people lost their minds when they had like the Terrio skin for
Oh yeah,
what is it, the new Sonic Shadow generations, and
yeah.
how everybody kept bringing back the Blaze design and drawing that. So people love the things that came from the past. I mean,
It is interesting how much nostalgia will be ridiculed at the time of release, but then you get kind of a revisionist history of like 7 to 10 years down the road, and people love it,
hmm
saying like, "Oh no, it was always good," and you see a lot with like Sonic 06, where it's
oh
like
yeah,
Sonic 06 was a bad game. There were some decent parts to it, but it was still functionally a poor made game that even the good parts of it, the things that did well, paled in comparison to how shitty everything else was.
right. So with this in mind, Malzilla, thoughts on these 3 episodes we're going to do today? Heads or tails? Was it Sonic and Sally? And what was the other one? Sonic Boom.
Sonic Boom.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed them. I think they're all. I think Heads and Tails and Sonic Boom, because Heads and Tails being the pilot and Sonic Boom kind of being the official episode 1. It's really funny to compare and contrast the two, because it really tells like how much they changed from like their initial pitch, or just in character design. Like, again, you had Pink Sally, the characters looked younger, even Robotropolis looked a little bit brighter. It was a brighter color palette. It was a little bit more funnier. I mean, God, to this day, Sonic's Axl Rose reference, you know, cracks me up. And also, I'm convinced that Axl Rose is Amy Rose's dad. You can't change my mind on this. Can't change my mind. There's no
Okay.
proof saying that he is or that he's not, but yes,
Huh?
Axl Rose is the father of Amy Rose. Um, but yeah, again, it's a fun to compare and contrast. Like, again, going back to Sally, she was Pink Sally. She sound, Kath made her sound younger, but then comes Sonic Boom, where it's the more Sally design we know of. But she sounds a lot more mature. Almost sultry at times. She's incredibly sassy, and the color palette for the episode goes much darker.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the only thing I have to really say about it is that I don't know. It's like the more the show gets old, and the more I get old, I just love this show, man. And it's like I liked it when it came out, and I still like it. I thought maybe like it's not gonna age well. I'm gonna agree with what the kids say. Like this is so old, and Sonic is out of character, and this is it's just it's not a good show, or it's boring or whatever. Like I'm not seeing it, man. I don't see what you're seeing. I guess I know art is subjective, but it's like I love this thing. It's like this is
I
like
love SatAM too, and the third episode, Sonic and Sally, kind of really set the whole groundwork of why Sonic and Sally was such an enduring ship to this day. I mean, yeah, Sally hasn't been in Sonic media since I think 2017. So we're getting almost 10 years now. That makes me sad. But she's still very much beloved. Her dynamic with Sonic is still very much beloved, and it kind of all started here with episode 3 that was written by Ben Hurst. Um, it's a dynamic that obviously some modern day Sonic fans, or fans who've gotten to Sonic, in the late '90s, even at the time, but especially kind of those who came in the mid thousands, where obviously Sonic had a different tone. Like, I always say, like, people who got into Sonic at Sonic X in like Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Adventure, the tone across these various forms of media was very similar because, the franchise had been around for 10 years. They were able to hammer things out and say, okay, this is the direction they wanted to go in. In those early days, it was like the Wild West. It's like Sega Japan was wanting to do one thing, Sega of America was wanting to do other thing. They were barely talking to each other. There was, I don't say mud flinging, but felt like, one side was jealous of the other and vice versa. So, you have these conflicting viewpoints, and because of that, you had the Fleetway Sonic comics, they were own thing. The Archie comics and SatAM were their own stories, and then you had Japan had its own things too. So, it took them like 7 years to kind of wrangle things all together. So, and that, it's hard for some modern day fans to realize.
Yeah. All right, so let's go into our first episode of Heads or Tails. As I said prior, the air date is December 1993. December 11th, mind you. Of course, these are out of sequence, as I stated prior. Directed by John Grusd, whose background is also in animation, and written by Lan Jensen, kind of the mastermind behind the project, which is not, even though everyone talks about Ben Hurst, he is actually the person who is like the showrunner for the show. And I know a lot of SatAM fans have been trying to get a hold of him, but so far nobody's had success in doing so. But
He's hiding from us.
I guess
Good
so. Yeah. The same thing with Kat Susie. Supposedly, like, she doesn't want any internet attention, and good for her. That's all I can say.
For Kath, I get it, and plus, $5 says she barely even remembers the role. She's been in so much stuff.
You think so,
Yeah.
huh?
Oh yeah, I mean, she was Lola Bunny. Kath was definitely one of the big voice actors of the 80s and 90s, and she's still getting stuff today. So,
Yeah. I don't have the actual production code pulled up, but I'm pretty sure this is the very first episode because, well, as you'll notice, we get Pink Sally.
It's the pilot.
Yeah. So, just to begin with the quick synopsis, our story begins with somber music and a robotic voice off screen stating ETA Mobius 60 seconds, as we, the viewer, make our way through the clouds to see a dystopian factory city producing purple steam out of several industrial smokestacks. As I said prior, as we talked about the show, I am amazed with how much they get out of a video game, to put in the show. Because there's a lot of stuff that's not from the games that make it into the show. That I really feel that work with this show. That really makes the show cohesive in a way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and especially when you consider the fact that this show went into production probably like less than a year after the first game came out.
Mm-hmm. You know what? You know what's interesting too is I went on to ChatGPT to like see which references, what they would say match SatAM. They gave me a whole list, and I agree with all of it. But I'll do that at the end because while we go through the synopsis, I'll probably point out some of the references here. So in approaches a black aircraft with red fins and transparent windows. Inside the aircraft, a robotics voice says, 5 seconds, Dr. Robotnik. As the aircraft descends into the city, Dr. Robotnik pets his robot chicken, Cluck, who we only see in the first season. I'm pretty sure. And I don't remember him in the second season or any glimpses of him.
And yeah, he got trashed.
I guess the Blofeld reference was just too much for him. Actually,
one part Blofeld, one part the fact that, in this episode, and we'll talk about it, we do see a lot of what they would say would be the badniks, from the games, but they decided just like, what, we're just going to do SWAT bots, probably for production's sake.
Yeah, get out those NFTs, those NFT villains, where they all look the same, so they don't have to like make them look different at all, right? Uh, yeah. What's his name again? Help me out. Are you a James Bond fan or not really?
Ernst Lav Blofeld,
Thank you. All right. So I imagine because like
head of Spectre.
Spectre, yeah, because he's
Spectre.
kind of like a staple of James Bond, right?
Yeah, he's the Blofeld was kind of the quintessential, Bond, super antagonist. He was the mysterious guy in the chair, head of the evil organization. You know, he had the cat. He had the look. Obviously he was the inspiration for Doctor Evil. And then kind of in a weird twist of fate because in Austin Powers 3 they made Austin and Dr. Evil brothers, but then in when they brought Blofeld back in the Daniel Craig Bond films, they had him be adoptive brothers.
That's right. Yeah. Uh, yeah.
Christoph Waltz, we love him, he's a great actor. He could read the phone book and I'd be in
You'd watch from start
I
to
would.
finish.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously they're trying to go for that. I mean, in Japan they even like sort of like was it with what's his name Giovanni for Pokemon? They use this kind of character,
Exactly.
so it's
Yeah.
it's a pretty iconic character. I'm not
Right.
sure, but Blofeld wasn't fat. It's interesting that I think they obviously took from the games that Robotnik was obese, right?
He was
Or
an egg.
he was an egg. Which they never bring up in the show, which I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. I guess I don't know. What is it? The main location in this show is an egg, right? Isn't that supposed to be an egg? Like whenever
Um,
they cut to like
his
Robotnik and they
little
showed his
fortress.
yeah they showed his fortress. That's supposed to be an egg, right?
You could probably swing that argument, and people would probably just roll with it.
Because I don't think they say that the words Eggman once in the show.
Oh no, like Eggman really didn't hit the English vernacular of the mainstream Sonic. Now, obviously, the hardcore fans knew it because they'd be like, "Oh yeah, in Japan, it's this, this, and this." But Eggman really didn't enter the American lexicon till Adventure, which was again kind of that consolidate, Sega saying, okay, we need to get Sega of America, Sega of Europe, and Sega of Japan. We need to kind of unite the three heads of the dragon as opposed to just being, the Ghidorah meme, where you have the two normal heads, then the goofy head off to the side.
Right, right, right. Very true. Very true. Yeah. So with that in mind, the music then transitioned into more of an Imperial death march as the aircraft lands. Awaiting his arrival is Snively, who politely greets Robotnik, only to be told, "Shut up, Snively."
Also,
Yes.
can we give a shout out to an R.I.P. to James Earl Jones since you
Oh,
said Imperial
sure.
Death March? Yeah, we lost a real one. We lost Darth
Oh,
Vader.
yeah, I see. Yeah. I was watching one of his. I guess this is where how you figure out how to date this show. Yes. I was watching some of the Simpsons episodes where he was in. I don't think he makes it into this show though. So, but yes, R.I.P. Yeah. So Snively politely greets Robotnik to tell him shut up, Snively, as he enters the building onto the launch pad. Feel free to chime in at any moment, Malzilla, because as said prior, we recorded this episode, but I'm going to skip a lot of my talking points because
Oh, no problem.
some of them were kind of moot, where it's like I had something to say and it didn't go anywhere. Um, but yeah, so in the next shot, we see Robotnik seated in a teched-up lounge chair where he asks Snively any hint of that troublesome hedgehog. Not wanting to disappoint him, Snively stutters and then directs his attention to one of the monitors in the room. Robotnik recognizes the character on the monitor as one of those freedom fighters, as Snively informs him that his name is Tails and that he is usually accompanied by Sonic. So Robotnik demands that his people should take him and to flesh out the cries of the hedgehog. And then we cut to a tropical forest with the change in music to a more playful, whimsical tune as it pans over to Tails picking and sniffing flowers, stating, "Princess Sally will love these. I can't wait to give them to her." I don't know why I'm using a Ralph voice for Tails, but supposedly he's Ralph from The Simpsons. Um,
He's endangered.
yeah. Spoiler alert, too. He never gives the flowers to Sally. We never see it. It happens off screen if it does. When suddenly a Buzz Bomber, a character from the first Sega Genesis game, attacks by swooping down from the sky, causing Tails to flee the scene. Mind you, this is the same design as the Buzz Bomber from the Archie Comics issue 0. A design we do never see again. Next, further in the forest, we are introduced to Rotor, removing items from his backpack. One of the items being a fish he gobbles up. A voice off screen states, "You ready, Rotor?" So let me chime in a little for myself here. So, do you really think these characters are based on Ricky, Picky, Rocky, Cucky, and Pocky? And yes, I said Cucky. Or Clucky? Maybe his name's Clucky. I'm sorry, his name's Clucky now.
It actually, yeah, it was originally Cucky, but then modern vernacular made that change.
It killed the name.
But
You're hurting the Japanese lore, Malzilla. You're hurting those careful Japanese
yeah,
people who worked so hard to make this name. How dare you?
I mean, again, if you go off of all the production stuff, in the old Sonic Bible,
Yes.
they decided, well, if we're going to make a show, we got to have more than one character. We don't. In again, the franchise was in its infancy. There really wasn't much to work with until they said, well, we got the little animal friends. Well, what do we have? We have like a penguin, a chicken, uh, a squirrel, chipmunk critter, you know, and they kind of and a rabbit, and so it's like, okay, well, we'll just use them because again, it's like, hey, which in a way is kind of an ingenious little move. It's like, well, okay, well, we'll make characters, but we'll base them off of the pre-existing material or assets. So, obviously, I think it was. Ricky was the squirrel. I think Johnny was the rabbit. Johnny Lightfoot, which
Mm-hmm.
would stay as it was in Fleetway, but they would eventually get a little. I think Rotor was originally supposed to be like Joe Sushi or something like that.
What? I've never
Toasters,
heard
correct me in
this.
the chat.
Okay.
I
All right.
might be like missing, getting some wires crossed on that, but no, Rocky was the walrus. Joe Sushi was like one of those really like proto. That was back when like Sally was yellow with the red dress.
Joe Sushi.
Remember
Okay.
that proto design?
This sounds slightly
But
racist.
regardless,
Yeah.
probably it was the early
It
'90s.
was the early
Um,
90s where we got like weird depictions of French people. Not weird, I guess that was just. We
yeah,
just had this
kind
particular
of
depiction of French people
stereotypes.
then. Yes.
Exactly. So, I would say for Rocky, Johnny, and Ricky, I would say yes. They were they were the inspirations that would become Sally, Bunny, and Rotor. Um,
So you think my
again,
my
we
assumption
see,
is fair, is what you're saying.
yeah, your assumption is fair. I remember, I think was it like Ben Bates actually did when they were doing the redesigns ideas for he had some Sally designs that were very Ricky inspired. I mean, not as Ricky heavy as Sally from Fleetway, but kind of a interesting maybe 2/3 Sally from the previous incarnation, and then maybe 1/3 a little bit more into the Chipmunk Ricky version. But ultimately, yeah, she became more in line with the Sonic design.
Right, right.
They all did. I'd actually, if you want to look at compare Rotor's design in the post boot with the walruses they had in Sonic Boom, they are very similar. Like that feels like that is the walrus design that Sega is rolling with.
Right, right, right. Well, I love these characters. I like what they did. I think they should continue it. So, moving on.
Absolutely.
In approaches our main character, playing a tune on his red electric guitar. Rotor states, Sally wouldn't like it. And Sonic bickers a little bit about it. Like, a lot of bickering,
He
not
goes
just
in
a
this
little bickering.
rant.
Yeah, which we don't...
He goes on a rant.
I don't think we get many rants after this episode. I think this is the only real rant we get, because they probably didn't know what to do with the character at the time. I don't know. Hard to
They
say.
were in the early stages.
I'm sure the notes
I mentioned
from...
this earlier.
Yes? You mentioned earlier?
I was going to say, as I mentioned earlier, the Sonic dropping the Axl Rose reference, complete 90s hilarity with fight. Because I think they did say something, and again, I could be wrong, because I know they did this with Archie, but I think originally was the plan for SatAM to reveal, like, oh yeah, Mobius was just a post-apocalyptic Earth. So I'm just thinking, it's like, how of all things to survive was a Guns N' Roses CD to survive the apocalypse?
yeah, right. Hey, I mean, I don't know. It's like what are those ones like those
I like
time capsules? You like they always like put those ridiculous things in the time capsule. One of them was an Axl Rose CD. They dug it up and they found it.
Oh no, that's let's see. Hold on, I'm gonna look up something really quick.
Okay. While you're looking that up, I mean it's just I want to mention how funny how it is that the guitar appears every now and then, sort of like it's in his back pocket, sort of like how like Sonic has like a. Yeah, you found it? What does it say?
Space. Yeah, so, like you said, the time capsule, like, a 1987 time capsule with a copy of Appetite for Destruction. And, I just imagine, Sonic finding that in, like, Knothole one day. It's like, oh my god, the 80s. That'll be fine. Okay, continue on.
All right, no, it's fine. I mean, it is the 80s. It's very much a... Well, I don't want to say it's a product of its time. I mean, I guess it is and it isn't. I don't know. No, it is a product of its time. Very much is. But I do think parts of the show are somewhat timeless. Because, I mean, obviously I still really love this show. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. Despite this episode, which I'll get to my review in a minute. So meanwhile, Tails screams, Sonic! Because, that's a thing he does. As he's being chased by a Buzz Bomber, Sonic goes to rescue Tails as the Buzz Bomber's projectile laser ricochets off a boulder and hits the Buzz Bomber back in his face, disarming the threat. This is usually a way Sonic gets rid of enemies. I think only in SatAM. I don't know. I could, like, talk forever about, like, these action sequences and these, like, what would you call these? Moments of how Sonic... Yeah, set pieces of how Sonic gets rid of an enemy, but I just feel like this is just, I don't know, superfluous. So I'll probably end up skipping a lot of them. If people actually find these entertaining, I don't know, Malzilla, if you find them entertaining, let me know. Because I find this stuff boring. I mean, it's just like, alright, let's go to the plot. Let's skip this part. I'm not sure how you're feeling.
Except for when action is the plot.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, usually he finds some clever way to get rid of the enemy, but I kind of feel like these moments are kind of like the fast-forward moments. This is like, I guess to be critical of the show, this is the only part of the show where it's like, alright, come on, let's speed this up. Like, I don't need to know how he gets rid of this enemy. But, I mean, maybe the same, like, even in the same thing when we were doing the Sonic 3 trailer, I completely did not cover the part where Shadow and Sonic, like, start fighting. Because I just kind of find this, like, alright, they fight. Let's go to the next part. But it seems like you enjoyed it a lot. So, again.
Yeah, I definitely say that I think on this case, Radrey, good buddy, that you are in the minority about the action sequences. I think everyone, at least in the case of that Sonic 3 trailer. But I think for the sake of, most people have probably seen this, so we probably should kind of keep a good pace. So,
all right, how about this for the future? Right. If you find one that I skip over that you think, why didn't you talk about that? Please tell me. So while this is happening, a levitating eyeball robot, not the same design that we see later in the show, is surveillancing everything. Sonic and Tails and Rotor look into the eyes, speak directly to they know who is Robotnik on the other end, and Sonic mocks Robotnik, which prompts Robotnik to threaten Sonic and company, saying more or less that before the day is done, that him and the Power Rings will be in the palm of his hand. And Sonic and company scoff at this and exit the scene. I am kind of curious how they came up with the designs for the show, but that's a conversation for another day. We then go deeper into the forest as Sonic super speeds his way with Rotor, Tails, and on his back to a tree that has a branch vine to reveal a secret entrance. The entrance itself becomes a slide and pushes our characters down a steep cave tunnel into a long tube chute, shooting them into a pile of hay. The old knothole entrance, right, that we later see in the Archie comic, but I don't think it outlives SatAM and Archie. This is it, folks. I love this thing. This thing is great. So, we are now in a hidden valley where the camera pans left to show us a deeply forested area with several crates, catapults, large trees, and many treetops. Here we have Bunny Rabbit hurling a broken catapult in the air, while Antoine commenting on it, and Pink Sally in a headset standing away from typing on her boxy, clunky yellow computer, not yet named Nicole. That's propped up with a monopod with a circular base with wheels. In speeds Sonic, and Sally is irritated with a look on her face, concerned. Sonic asks what's wrong, and Sally exposes him for the deadbeat he is, but not helping her and the others for, various reasons. And Sonic in the moment tries to save face with her as she somewhat playfully questions his decisions. Sally informs him that they need cotter pins, because this is the MacGuffin of the episode. And Sonic wanted to help, tells Rhoda that we need to do the ring thing. And Sally groans for some reason. Now, as I said prior, I am not a fan of this iteration of Sally. I just kind of find this as like an irritating character that stops Sonic from doing what he needs to do, opposed to how she's like depicted in the later episodes, where she's... Well?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. It should just have to be the whole episode.
I like Pink Sally.
You like Pink Sally, I know. I like the design too.
I
do
Pink
too.
Sally. I don't mind this because, like, as we get into episode 1 proper, I'll go into a little bit more detail later. We will see in episode 1. So, like, in episode 1, Sonic, Antoine, Rotor, they're all kind of the mid-teens. This looks like she's a pre-teen. She also sounds like she's, a lot younger than, she would become. So, she's a little bit playful. She is kind of naggy. And I think that's kind of how they wanted to kind of, she's a little naggy. She's not that bad. To kind of, she is the yin to Sonic's yang. Sonic's like, I'm going to do what I want. She's kind of like, you kind of have to do, not so much what I say, but kind of, think about the rest of us and kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
He's trying to control the chaos that is Sonic.
Oh,
she
right.
Just needs a fake emerald.
Right. She just needs a fake emerald. There you go. All right, that should have been here. I guess they didn't really have their emerald lore down at this point, so nor did they have Izuka making up weird things that, then they had to, like, reshuffle the lore every year or 5 months or whatever it is, whenever he makes a statement. Like, actually, he's not a hedgehog.
Yeah.
He's a ghost. Like, what? There's a recent, what I'm referring to, there's a recent Izuka interview where he talks about the shadow lore, but we'll probably get into that next week, because I want to dive into that the more I think about it. So yeah, long story short, I don't like the Sally. As we get through later in the season, it's like, the analogy I'm going to use, it's like being in a car where you feel very uncomfortable, while you're driving in it. But as the series progresses and we get brown Sally with red hair, it feels like I finally adjusted the car to fit me. Like, oh, so much better. Anyway, So, in the next scene, Sonic, Rotor, and Tails peer eagerly into a bubbling lake while sitting on a log board in anticipation. Tails says, "Here it comes!" as a dinner plate-sized ring floats out of the lake. Tails then asks, "How come you're the only guy who can use the power ring?" Sonic responds, "Because my Uncle Chuck invented them for me so I could bring them down dorks like Robotnik." Of course, he didn't say it in that tone of voice, but I don't know why. I would would really know why Sonic is the only one and how he actually invented this, but of course we don't get this because the show ended after the second season. But yeah, but before making his way to the city, Rotor supplies him with a metal cotter pin as we get to see what I think is the Freedom Fighter handshake, where we get the origin, I believe. And if you don't know what that is, just type in the Freedom Fighter handshake on Google. It's kind of like one of those 90s handshakes. You describe this as a 90s handshake, Malzilla?
Very much.
Okay. Yeah, so Sonic super speeds his way through the forest of the city. Tails flies in using two of his tails as propellers. They have like a little... Sonic and Tails have a little bit of back and forth. And then Tails then guilt trips Sonic about this, and Sonic acquiesces and invites him to join on his journey for 6 metal cotter pins. Sonic and Tails in his backpack enter the Blade Runner-esque town while it rains, using stealth by hiding in a box to dodge SWAT bots and aircrafts patrolling the city. Tails then comments how bad the city smells. This is something I want to bring up, that they often talk about how the city smells, which I think is interesting. I love the attention to detail this show uses, opposed to like something like Sonic X, which I don't really feel like has enough detail. But this isn't the Sonic X review, which I do want to review at some point, because that show drives me insane. So Tails' attention is how we're focused on the robots that used to be people that are marching into some building nearby, Sonic explains. Tails then asks if both Uncle Chuck was there with the marching robot people, then followed by him wanting to see his picture again. Tails asks if he misses Uncle Chuck, and Sonic responds a ton, and Mutsky too, and the dog featured in the photo that they have in their pocket. But yet, serendipitously, Tails suddenly sees a mean-looking robot dog, his words, when Sonic interrupts him by saying that is actually Mutsky. Sonic then tries to get Mutsky's attention by waving to him, and we see Mutsky stare at Sonic ominously in his red Terminator POV viewfinder targeting him. So we already have a bunch of references, as stated, like the Terminator, Blade Runner. I think these are obvious references, but... So, Mutsky responds by running towards Sonic, looking as if he is ready to attack. Mutsky bites Sonic's rear end, removing some blue fur. I love how we get to see this, mind you. And Sonic then scolds him for being a bad dog, stretches Mutsky to obediently sit and wag his tail. And Sonic pets him and asks if it's possibly seen Uncle Chuck. Mutsky doesn't respond, so Sonic surmises that they need to keep looking. Sonic also promises to one day reverse roboticize him and the other people back to normal. Despite Mutsky maintaining familiarity with who Sonic is as his owner, Mutsky's robotic programming reverts him back to attack mode, and he attacks Sonic again. Something we see in the show a lot. Sonic then, let's see. Hold on, I'm reading the wrong part. Oh, so as Sonic and Tails try to escape the city, they're transported back to the top of a building, surrounded by SWAT bots. To hide, they enter an air vent. The air vent also happens to be the same air vent right above Dr. Robotnik, where he claims to have the most brilliant plan to date. That's something that he also does a lot. I will say this scene's actually really well put together, because he talks about his brilliant plan while we see the rising tension of Sonic in the air vent. And meanwhile, while Sonic and Tails wait in the vent, Tails then tells us he has to go to the bathroom real bad, raise the tension. And Robotnik continues by saying that using this chemical created will be carried by buzz bombers under Snivelly's direction, is intended to be sprayed over the great forest, killing all the trees, revealing the Freedom Fighters' secret hiding place, not whole village. Again, relying on Snively to do all the work. Does he do this in the games? Does he, rely on everything else? He just relies on all his other robots, right? Just to sit down and push buttons.
Pretty much.
But he is pretty fast. He can outrun Sonic, or at least what we've seen.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Only after Sonic's exhausted fighting giant robot mechs.
Anyway, did anything in that entire description, anything you want to state? Shall we continue?
Continue on.
Okay, so Robotnik then states that his SWAT bots he'll use the SWAT bots to capture Princess Sally because obviously, as we stated in the earlier podcast, she's pretty important into the show. Yet, to make sure that the scheme goes to plan, in preparation, Robotnik created what he calls a hedgehog-seeking missile, a very Adventures of design. You could obviously tell this is like one of the first episodes, if you see this thing. Robotnik starts the countdown to 10 seconds while Tails suddenly sneezes, blowing their cover, and Robotnik finds them. Cut to commercial break. Sonic is captured, but is able to speed out of the room without a problem. Unfortunately, the room outside is surrounded by SWAT bots, which leads Sonic to decide to use his power ring in his backpack. As to what he says, "Hold on, Tails, we're going to warp Sonic!" And referring to himself in the third person, I think, or maybe not. Which allows him to super speed out of the area. And then Tails somehow has goggles while he's hiding in Sonic's backpack. And we get the line from Tails saying, "Is this cool or what?" And Sonic says, "Way past." And obviously this is the origin for where we get the Sonic Archie comic. The Way Past Cool comic. Or maybe this is a Yuji Naka thing. I don't know. Probably not.
He said way past in his little guitar song to Sally. So, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, the phrase originated in this episode.
Yeah, nice. Well, you heard it here, folks. So, cut back to Knot Village. We go to the inside one of the treetops. Because in this pilot episode, we get treetops, which I don't think we ever see again. Funny enough, we have that, I think, what is it, in Sonic 2? Isn't there like a treetop level that never made it into the game? Do you remember that one?
Wood Zone.
Wood Zone. Have you ever seen that?
Wood Zone. I've seen the images of it.
Okay.
Fun fact, they actually used Wood Zone in the post-boot Archie as the zone where Knothole is located in.
Oh, I didn't know that. The more you know.
The more you know, / the more you read Archie Sonic.
Yeah, there you go. It's a journey reading Archie Sonic. I still haven't been able to take it. So anyway, worried Sally and Bunny sitting in bed with hair collars rolled up in her ears and face covered in green cream. I think this was a thing people did in the 90s. Do people still do this today? Wearing green cream and everything?
I think they've obviously found better beauty,
hacks,
beauty hacks, beauty routines. But it's Bunny wants to look cute. You can't kick butt. Can't do revolution unless you're looking cute. So she's like, I'm committing to my skincare routine.
Yeah,
so,
committing to that war paint. Yeah. So Sally nags that Sonic doesn't help out enough, but is also worried about him since it's so late. Bunny tells her not to worry. Sally then questions if Sonic does all this stuff to make her mad. I mean,
you gotta know. You gotta go with Bunny's. Like, she's like, girl, stop crushing that hard. You're it's pretty tell that Bunny just wants to sleep, and Sally is like, does he love me? Why does he bug me?
See, I don't like this, man. I don't like this version of Sally. I'm glad they got rid of it. Anyway,
fine.
Yeah. The characterization, I should just say that. I mean, the design, like the pink design is cute. I mean, that one's fine. But
again, if you think of this Sally as like a preteen who will grow up in a couple years into the Sally we see later on, it makes a lot more sense.
That's fair. All right, I'll accept that.
That's how I see it.
All right, yeah, that's a fair analysis. I'll take that one. So Bunny ends the scene by telling Sally, "Oh, that's just Sonic. That's what makes him special," right before they hear the sounds of Sonic's beat outside. Sally is then elated when the boom sound and camera shake to indicate Sonic's presence in the room. Cut to a very filmic scene of Sonic outside, standing on a rock, what I think is a rock in the Lake of Rings, to rally up the other freedom fighters. Sally and company are all with fire torches in hand. They're an angry mob now. Sonic tells the people what Robotnik's plan is with the buzz bombers and with the tree-killing chemicals, which prompts Sally to say, "I have a plan." Cut quickly to daytime, suddenly, and the buzz bombers arrive with the chemical, and Sonic and crew prepare their catapults. Tails keeps lookout on the treetop. Sally then informs Sonic that the catapults have bad range, and it indicates that they have a problem. Sonic explains that he could use himself as bait, and Sally begrudgingly and bashfully agrees that it's a good idea. So then Sonic boasts about how great his idea is. Sally then launches Sonic from one of the catapults in the air with water balloons to short-circuit the buzz bombers, and the hedgehog-seeking missile tries to hit Sonic. You remember this thing? It's back! And Sonic redirects the missile to hit the other buzz bombers, thus drops the chemical and the drainage ditch away from the forest, thus diverting, the threat. Sally gives the command to launch the rest of the water balloons. I guess this is their plan. And they have water balloons. They have latex water balloons. And for some reason, Tails is down near the buzz bombers, flying away, screaming for Sonic to come rescue him. They never establish how he got down there. Anyway, the buzz bombers seem to return home to the base to retreat. And then Robotnik tells Snively to come here so he can beat him up. It's funny watching this in 2024 because it's like, holy shit, domestic abuse. Oh god. I don't know if we'd have this kind of this sort of like story kind of plot in a modern Sonic, or maybe we would. I don't know.
I mean, Ian got away with like some shenanigans back in the his post-boot day before they kind of decided to, Snively kind of had a weird makeover origin, like the post-boot. One of the things that they did was like they couldn't really characters could have family anymore outside like the Sega created relationships or parental dynamics. So obviously like King Acorn, and Sally were a thing. Cream and Vanilla were a thing. Eggman and Gerald were a thing. They got away with Uncle Chuck because everyone called him Uncle Chuck, and they kind of alluded to, but not really alluded to. One of his they kind of had a little like caption that says "Uncle to everyone." Everyone was Uncle Chuck. Like he was an uncle to everyone. Everyone just called him Uncle Chuck.
Mm-hmm.
So whether he was Sonic's actual uncle, they never really kind of they never quite went whole hog to commit to that, because again it's not like they want Sonic to have family.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's a reason why I don't talk to modern Sonic fans. Or, I mean, maybe there's some. I mean, like yourself. I do. That's not true. Me. I talk to you. I do talk to some modern Sonic fans. That's not true. But it gets to the point where it's like I start zoning out if like the conversation gets too serious, or like they get very pedantic about one tiny issue. It's like, all right, moving on, pivoting. So I'll talk more about this in another episode about Sonic fans. This is like a whole deep dive I could do, just talking about them and their nonsense. And my own nonsense, mind you. So, anyway, meanwhile, back in Knothole Village, Sally high-fives Sonic and says, "You were really great today." And not in that voice, by the way. Sonic then asks, "What about yesterday?" Sally responds, "So-so." And then they exit the scene, playfully bickering. End of episode. So, as we said prior in the previous recording, I gave this episode a C-. Malzilla, has your... What?
I think I give it a B.
You said a C before, so you upgraded it.
Really?
Yeah, you gave it a C last time. I mean, there's no recording, but my memory says you gave it a C because it's very like.
Well then, okay. Well, I'll give it a B- then.
All right, I still give it a C-. I'm just not a fan of this episode.
It's a pilot episode. It really gets it. It serves what it needs to. It says, okay, here's our proof of concept in a not half-assed done with crayons. It's like we threw some money into this. It's kind of like Ryan Reynolds leaked Deadpool footage that he did when he got to do the Deadpool. Like that mysterious leaked that he winked at the crowd. But it's a proof of concept. It does some things right. Um, I would actually legitimately say a lot of the tone, a lot of the colors, a lot of the elements of this pilot episode are actually more in line with the games than what they would go to once the season starts. And we can kind of go into the compare and the contrast once we start the next episode review, which would be, correct me if I'm wrong, let me pull up the list. This would be Sonic Boom. Not to be confused with the games and the show Sonic Boom or the theme song for Sonic CD.
Yeah, the rise of regular Sally.
Yes. So, yes, this is the transition. We've gone from pilot to actual first episode. This, again, was written by Len Jansen. Aired September 25th, 1993. So
Really? I got 18th on my list. Okay, you got 23rd?
I got 25th.
Okay.
I'm just going off the Wikipedia, so I could be wrong.
I think I got my info from Wikipedia, too. Damn you, Wiki. Or maybe I got it from the Sonic Wiki? I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, this is like, if you watch these two episodes back, it's a dramatic shift of color, of tone.
Oh, yeah.
Of attitude. Again, the characters look several years older. It's like they took Pink Sally, who's kind of like, she's cute. She's kind of in that preteen, not like that, maybe 10 to 12 range. They said, we're going to hit her with the puberty bat. And next thing you know, she's 15-year-old, Sally, who would be the early 90s furry bait.
Okay. When she becomes later 20 years old-esque looking in the Archie comic, right? Did they ever upgrade her to that or never? It's always like at this Goldilocks zone, being a teenager.
Well, actually, considering the fact that Sonic had 2 birthdays, plus he missed one, so like Sonic should, in theory, like Sonic and Sally should be about 18 by the time of the, when they did the reboot. Knuckles would be about 19. I know technically Sally did marry Evil Antoine for like 12 hours before it got annulled. So clearly, she was, I think, probably 17 or 18 at the time. So they did get into their late teens. They didn't quite go into their early 20s, but we would see them in their, 30s when we got to the Mobius XYL spin-off alternate realities timelines.
Mm-hmm. Right. Just to chime in here, just to say that, Sonic Boom was directed by the director Dick Sebast, also with a background in animation. Most of the people who put this show together was all, the toolbox they came with. It's not like they worked in Hollywood. Or I guess this is Hollywood. Their background's animation. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yes, Sonic Boom, our story begins with text on the screen with what appears to look like a computer code with the words radar mode and visual mode, jump cutting onto the screen with a snapshot sound effect. The Sonic Imperial Death March returns. It plays music with a visual of Robotropolis.
The Eggperial
March. Is that what it's called? The Eggperial March?
I'm just calling that because, it's the Eggman Empire.
Fair.
Eggperial.
Very fair.
I'm calling it. It's a thing now.
All right. It works for me. The camera pans down the beautiful backgrounds. I call these beautiful, but they're kind of like dark and dingy and morose. But with following us a teal-colored mecha as it enters the building and takes us the elevator to the 51st floor. Through one of the air ducts, we hear the sound of Sonic super speed as it waits for Antoine and a new character named Cat to catch up to him. As I've said in the other recording, Cat is obviously one of those red shirts from Star Trek. You know, like one of those new characters that just shows up to die. You know, you're like, who are you?
Like again, it's like he would be like the guest star, like on a normal show, because like sometimes you get the celebrity guest who shows up for an episode,
Yeah,
who it's like clearly they're not coming back, so they're either going to like complete their story in one or kill them. And
yeah.
props to the show for committing to the bit. Spoilers: we don't see Cat again, and it's heavily implied we're never going to see him again.
I like this character. I mean, they do bring him back in the what is it, Team Season 3 comic, which I think is really clever on how they bring him back. But we could talk about that another time. Which I think I really like the team behind Team Season 3, the creative team that is. But anyway, yeah, the teal mecha that we saw earlier opens the air duct, and Sonic and company are in and surveys the perimeter with its finger. I'm not sure what you call this. As the mecha opens and it's revealed to be Sally Acorn. Cat and Antoine are told to stay in the air duct while Sonic and Sally walk through the room to hack a computer in what Sally calls the brain of the planes to reprogram the launch data. Sally puts in her Nicole in the machine. Yeah, now a flip phone, not a big box of computer, and commands the computer.
Actually, kind of looks like a Game Boy a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was like the cool thing back then to have a flip phone. Now you just look like an old man. Anyway, so yeah, then she commands the computer to reprogram for X, not Twitter, mind you, whatever that means. And then, meanwhile, yellow mechas are patrolling the room when suddenly Sally finds a message reading Bean, the nickname Sally's father gave her when she was little. Nicole maintains that the message came from an area Sally refers to as the Dark Swamp, a location we never see again, I think. Or I don't think it ever makes it into Archie. I guess maybe
I think they have like there's some swampy stuff, but I don't think they've ever really used the term the Great Swamp. They've kind of referenced that like in between Robotropolis and the Great Forest, there's kind of this no man's Badlands area between the two, and kind of on the edge there's some swampy stuff, like a little marshland. So I think that's kind of what they're referring to in this.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, I said this prior, and I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say it 100 times. I like watching Sally hack. I mean, she's so sassy and suave. I mean, I always like the way she repeats some of Sonic's jargon back to him to, like, compliment him. It's like, I remember as soon as I saw this, because I remember this episode on VHS, because I had this episode, one of the very few that were available back in the 90s. But it's just watching. It's like, man, this is why I love this show. Like, she's so fun with this, with Sonic, and they work really well back and forth. And it's just like I'm going back, I thought, man, I'm gonna hate this show, because it's old, it's outdated, and it's just really like that. What that was is just me reading fan discourse. I'm not sure because most people today. Let me go on a little tangent here. It's a slight small tangent. Most people today probably watch too much television and media while doing other stuff on their phone. So I'm sitting here watching this, not looking at my phone and enjoying the shit out of this. So anyway, unfortunately, Antoine on the other side makes a mistake and falls out of the air duct, blowing their cover. Great scream from Antoine here, by the way.
Props again. Can I just say,
yeah.
I know we'll probably get on this a zillion times, but the vocal cast for SatAM is arguably one of the best vocal casts, especially for that time period. Rob Paulson, of various 90s cartoons and today, does a fantastic job with the Antoine de Colette. Or Depardieu, I believe, as he was in SatAM. Ho 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 ho.
Sonic decides to distract the SWAT bot. Yes, so just moving on. Sonic decides to distract the SWAT bot mechas while Antoine, Sally, and Cat retreat. Cat ends up to what I think is distracted and runs in the opposite direction of Antoine and Sally. Sonic catches up with Sally and Antoine in a meeting spot outside the city while Sonic starts to scold Antoine and he starts to realize Cat is missing. Sonic says, "I'm juicing back," while Sally says that she was sure that the message she saw earlier was from her father and decides to take Antoine with her to the Dark Swamp to find him. Much to Sonic's chagrin, he agrees and the two split up. I also want to point out here that this is another great playful banter between Sonic and Sally. I mean, it's really a chef's kiss. I mean, Sally's the type of girl who gets Sonic's humor. One of a kind. I mean, I'd have to say. I mean, it's nice to get a character like this. And I don't really remember, or at least my recent memory doesn't remember that many great female leads in kids shows back in the 90s, but maybe I was just very selective back then. I don't know. So cut to Robotnik sitting in his tech recliner with a camera positioned on him from the angle of being this Dr. Claw or villain Bullfield, as stated prior, enters Snively, who informs Robotnik how Sonic the Hedgehog got past the security. However, he comes with good news for him, saying that they caught a freedom fighter. The two yellow mechas bring in Cat in handcuffs. Then cut to commercial. As the show fades back in, Robotnik then begins to threaten Cat with being roboticized, and unless he reveals the location of Knothole, Cat refuses, and Robotnik calmly threatens him with the various robots that can do things he can't believe. Upping the dark content here. Time passes, and then Sonic returns to catches a glimpse of Cat being put in handcuffs and carried away by SWATbot, bringing him into another building in the city. Sonic enters the building by spin dashing through both the door and the elevator. Sonic finds Cat in one of the prison cells, where Cat tells Sonic Robotnik knows where Sally is headed for the Dark Swamp. Unfortunately, Sonic can't stay long because of the off-screen enemy shoots a laser at Sonic, and he exits the room. Cut back to a determined Sally and the very scared Antoine, and Antoine suggests possibly returning back to Knothole, which prompts Sally to ask Nicole if there might be any buildings in the Dark Swamp area. Nicole provides a hologram schematic display of Iron Lock Prison. Sally gasps. I don't think we ever get more of Iron Lock Prison outside of this show.
We don't.
Okay, all right. As Sonic speeds to rendezvous with Sally and Antoine, Robotnik launches one of his planes to follow him, only later to be destroyed by Sonic with his wit and speed in the next scene, after we go back to Sally and Antoine. As Sal and Ann approach the very Dragon's Lair entrance to Iron Lock Prison, Nicole informs them that the prison was built in 1543, but abandoned 100 years ago, which I guess that makes this 1643 in Mobius, if anyone's taking notes. While inside, Sally finds her father's cloak because she recognizes the design, and Antoine didn't get scared a bunch of times for some reason, and finally Sally, Sonic, and Antoine are reunited in some small cell room that has a computer, and Sally accesses it by using the words beam to encrypt an unfinished message to discover that her father is still alive, and that he wanted Sally to find this message. But before Sally can finish making the transfer to Nicole, a rock falls on the computer, and Sonic and company plunge through the floor, Return of the Jedi style, Jabba's palace, if you remember this reference.
Into the Rancor pit or into the trash compactor.
Yes, into the Rancor pit or the trash compactor, which they have a trash compactor in this show. They do that too. And speaking of Jabba, the monster Rancor appears at the end of the tunnel, as you said, with a glowing red light as they drop down into it.
And then they murder it.
Pretty much.
But it's not murder because it's a machine. This is children's television.
Yes.
What did you expect?
Yeah, Sonic gets the idea and pulls a power ring out of his backpack to speed through the monster's mouth, carrying both Antoine and Sally with their hands on its back. They protrude at the back end of the monster, revealing that the monster was a robot covered in a blanket. and they never tell us why it was a robot. I'm guessing it's for the reason you just said, Malzilla.
Again,
So,
it's the same reason Wolverine couldn't slice up anything but Sentinels with his claws back in the
oh,
X-Men
I didn't know
cartoon.
that. Okay.
Yeah,
Sally
it's
then
standards and practices.
All right. Well, this is why we have this, I guess. So Sally then consults with Nicole about how to find a way back out of the tunnel, back to the city, where Sally tampers with more of Robotnik's aircrafts. Sonic leaves Sally and Antoine to revisit Kat in his prison cell.
Surprise, surprise, Cat's not there.
Nope. And disappointed, Sonic leaves and meets Sally and Antoine up on a hill that oversees the city. Sonic's presence is then captured on camera, inciting Robotnik to launch his aircraft to attack. As Sonic informs them of the coming aircrafts, he removes one of those levitating robot eye cameras, a different design from the first, Sonic and Tails episode. Or was it Heads and Tails? It was called Heads and Tails.
Heads and tails.
Yeah,
Yep.
a different design. And he says, he pulls it out of his backpack stating news at 11. And
He's basically sassing the hell out of Robotnik.
yes, pretty much. And Robotnik states to notice that there is something wrong with the aircrafts and asks Snively to recall them. But before they can explode in the air, before they can, excuse me, I read that wrong. But before they can, they explode in the air like a giant fireworks display. End of episode. So,
Yay.
I would give this episode a B. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Not the best episode. I don't really recommend it. It's okay. It's not bad. It's not awful. It's watchable. I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't recommend it.
It's an interesting thing because, again, it's so fun to compare and contrast it with the pilot, where, though, I know you weren't really fond of the pilot compared to this one, I would say it's almost apples to oranges because, again, I feel like the pilot actually does a better job introducing the whole cast because Rotor and Bunny are not even in this episode. It is basically Sonic. Was Tails in this episode?
No, he wasn't.
No. So it's basically Sonic, Sally, and Antoine. So we don't really meet half of the main cast until the next episode. But yeah, it's fun. It kind of establishes like some of the ongoing plot threads, obviously with the mystery of where King Acorn is. Which kind of really all that does. Really, that's kind of the whole point. It's like, it kind of sets up Sally's really her ongoing plot thread.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, again, I give it a B. It's fine. It's not my top. Well, there's only so many episodes, so I definitely think it's not in my top 5, and probably not in my top 10 either.
All right, then we are simpatico.
We are simpatico.
All right. So moving on to the last episode for our recording tonight, Sonic and Sally, directed by Dick Sebast, written by Ben Hurst and Pat Ali, a writing duo that are best known for this show. I don't have the air date.
I do. I do right here. Sonic and Sally debuted October 2nd, 1993. So about almost 31 years ago.
Yeah, right. So our story begins Robotropolis, or Eggtropolis. What did you call it?
It's Robotropolis.
Okay, Robotropolis.
Robotropolis, and then he named it Robotropolis after himself.
Okay.
Because he's that much of a narcissist.
And he's an autocrat, as they call him. Where Bunny, Sally, and Sonic meet to destroy what I think is Robotnik's boiler. Here, Bunny makes a comment.
I think it's one of his little foundry systems.
Okay, yeah. Bunny here makes a comment about how bad the place smells and how we get our first Sonic Robotnik name drop and maybe our first do it to it, I think. Plus the secret handshake. Using the call, Sally arms several explosive canisters in Sonic's backpack. Our team synchronizes their watches and head out for Bunny to turn off electricity, Sonic to plant the
Can we talk about how much of a 90s trope like the synchronized watches thing was?
Yeah. Does anybody do that today? Is that a thing?
I can't honestly remember the last time they did that in something. Like maybe in some of like the serious spy, like, but they never like mentioned synchronized watches now. Yeah, that was such a '90s thing.
Yeah, they synchronize their watches. Yeah, and Sonic plants the canisters, and Sally has to detonate them. Um, I mean, there is some technology in this show that was kind of novel at the time that they didn't have, when it was airing. So it's kind of funny. I think some of it's sort of like they had some of the technology, but they were trying to be novel. But now it's like the way we look at our phones, right? We kind of just take it for granted. I think, but uh, one other thing I want to point out here is that I find it interesting that I'm not sure how much actual destruction we actually get from Robotnik and how much that causes. But I want to talk about that, but probably in a different episode so we can wrap this one up. Because there's a future episode where we talk about like destruction and part of the city, particularly the Forbidden Zone. I want to have that conversation there. Uh, Obviously, this is an example of how one fat guy controls all parts of the city somehow, or he probably doesn't, because we'll see in this episode he has lots of trouble. I'm guessing it's kind of like our Deus Ex for our heroes, because he can't really be everywhere. He can't be omnipresent. So, um, so then Sonic does another one of those speed versus robot things before falling into lava in the boiler room, and Bunny seems to have no trouble turning off the lights because SWAT-bots detect an organic life form nearby. They believe it to be a system error due to the presence of electricity from a nearby substation, which sets up errors all through Robotropolis. But Sally, unfortunately, is the one who gets caught. Sonic uses the moves he is most familiar with and knows how to using objects, projectile to kill off his enemies, while Sonic has some difficulty and uses a power ring to escape. Our heroes return to Knothole via tree chute into a stack of hay where Bunny loses her mechanical arm for some reason. According to the internet, this scene is cut out for reasons because I guess it's too visceral for some smaller audiences or younger audiences, excuse me. And Sonic lands in a hay right behind her. Anxious, Sonic threats that he's going to return to Robotropolis, go pick up Sally. However, before he can do this, Bunny stops him, claiming he needs a power ring. It's stalling for plot, but it works. Our story brings us back to Snively. Sally, captured by Dr. Robotnik, who just so happens to have a robot created to copy her likeness with what Snively says with an oversized computer chip that it has enough memory to duplicate human complexity. Despite Sally not being a human, but we get the idea. But I guess it works. Robotnik then not only wows captive Sally with its ability to imitate her voice, but also look exactly identical to her visually. Sally scoffs, saying Sonic would notice she's a fake, but then Robotnik goes the extra mile to transfer her personality with brain-scrambling technology. I don't know how this thing works, but I'm just going to go with it. I understand what's going on. I don't understand how this could, copy the personality. Or how, in, our modern world, and how you would copy someone's personality. But
AI.
AI, well, and it's like the catch-all for everything. Yeah, so then...
Well, yeah. Well, considering how much of that stuff is in the franchise, it makes sense.
All right, yeah, fair enough. I'm just gonna ignore it. I mean, I could go deep into this, but getting on a bit long here. So, cut to commercial, then we cut to Knothole, where Sonic is restless and waiting for a power ring to arrive. Then cut back to Sally, captive, where Robotnik introduces her via monitor to her new clone. I'm kind of curious how big Robotropolis is, that, Robotnik just can't go there himself. He has to appear via monitor. But I don't know sure if Archie ever talked about how big it is. But
Yeah, I don't think they've ever like quantified it, but from all the aerial shots, it looks like a fairly big city. Um, Definitely bigger than what would be Knothole and New Mobotropolis. as the story went on. But yeah, it's one of those things where like in this part of the story, like it is extremely like Deus Ex Machina. Like it's one of those things where it's like everything that they do just kind of like lucks out. Like they get so lucky on this one because really, if Eggman was any form of competent, he would have just roboticized Sally right then and there instead of just literally have her in that tube for the primarily of the episode. So it would be my one small gripe with this episode.
That's fair. Uh, I think they make up for it because they're, Robotropolis. It stinks. It's cluttered. You know, it's big, or at least that's what the episode kind of teaches us. I think there's an excuse for this one, so I forgive it.
Okay.
Robotnik then sets up Robot Sally in a cell and makes the security lax, but not too lax for Sonic to come to her rescue. I want to also ask here that this scene particularly, Sonic does a impression of Robotnik. Do you think this is a good impression? It's not good at all, right?
It's kind of supposed to be kind of funny, haha. Teen Titans Go did a joke for any of those people who watch that show where the Titans were trying to sneak into the Joker's, base of Ajax Chemical. And so to like fool the guards, they do their various Joker impersonations. Like Cyborg does Jack Nicholson, Beast Boy does not Jared Leto, Heath Ledger, and then Robin, being the loser, does Jared Leto, which almost like throws them off. And so, Beast Boy has to do his best Mark Hamill Joker. And, they're all pretty bad impersonations, but they're funny. That's kind of what Sonic's doing here. He's trying to, it's not so much the voice, it's the tone and what he's saying that gets it across.
Yeah. And obviously, yeah, as I stated prior, the security's really lax. But I think if the security wasn't so lax, we probably would not be able to get in. I also don't understand here too that they have like access to like ready-made meals. I don't think robots need to eat, or I don't know how this stuff works. They probably didn't think about this too much. I'm not sure why they went with this idea, but that's the idea they used. I don't mind it. I'm me focusing on this is like not seeing the forest from the trees. So, yeah. So Robot Sally rewards Sonic's bravery and gives him a kiss. Is this the first time we see a kiss outside the intro? I think it is.
Yeah, it's the first one.
Okay, all right. Everybody's taking notes.
And it won't be the last. Won't be the last.
Oh yeah, no, siree. So Sonic uses the power ring to quickly escape back, while Robotnik directs Snively to turn Sally into a robot. However, the system overloads and then explodes, postponing Sally's roboticization, which happens a lot in this episode.
Awfully lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets super lucky. Like, oh.
Well, we kind of have to have it. She's kind of like one of the main cast. She's got, main character shields,
Yeah, very true.
Or a shield. Anyway. Or plot armor. Let me put it that way.
Yep, that's the term we're looking for.
So due to this failure, a visual from Robot Sally is impaired, but audio still exists. Robotnik wastes no time, but I do question his actual tech here. The Sonic and Sally are given the hero's welcome back to Knothole, where Tails greets her and gives her a hug and a kiss. However befuddled, Tails maintains that Sally forgot the funny kiss. A phrase for the Sonic history books that'll never be forgotten.
That kiss wasn't very funny. It wasn't very funny at all.
Nope.
Those who've seen that animation will know what I'm referring to.
Oh, yes. Let's put that in the show notes. That's a good one. Sally, in a state of bewilderment, tries her best to remember what the funny kiss was. So I guess Robotnik can copy a personality, but he can't remember key details of relationships.
Yeah, she couldn't get the memories.
Okay. So, cut to nighttime, and we have Sally in the most sultriest voice to tell Tails it's story time. I don't know why they used this direction, but they used it. Sally then tries to read the story to Tails in bed, and then Tails interrupts her to say at first she has the wrong story, and also that her story wasn't normally delivered in a monotone voice. Which is really funny. She goes,
Basically, Tails is saying that, normally Sally puts on a bit of a show, not like that, get your minds out of the gutter, when she, reads, the bedtime stories. And this one, the Robo Sally is just kind of speed reading them. Thus, the sus continues and intensifies.
yeah, yeah. What is it? Trying to go to my. Okay, so yeah, so Sally remembers story time. Yeah, but she can't remember how to read the book. I guess you could write this off as her being a robot. So, frustrated, Robot Sally argues it's late and does not finish reading the rest of the story. Uh, I guess can't the robot tell when it's losing the trust in people in its group? Or Robotnik didn't think of that. I imagine all this tech is stolen by Robotnik. He didn't come up with any of it, at least in the show. Sally then meets up with Bunny, now fixing her arm, when Sonic joins them to say that they would be going back to Robotropolis to finish what they started. Cut in Robotnik's HQ, where we see Robotnik grovel in glee in anticipation, with Sally shaking her head. At night, Tails awakens to see Robot Sally with a broom in hand walking around at night alone, and Sally then scans Knothole with her red laser eye vision for some reason. Tails, who is too scared to do anything, hides underneath his bed covers. I'm guessing to destroy the plants in the area, because that's established later. So yeah, the next morning, Bunny and Tails wake up Robot Sally and show her that how Knothole's harvest of carrots has withered away. Robot Sally then makes this angry face, which prompts Tails to make an even weirder face of suspicion as Sonic and Robot Sally walk on the pier, later getting ready to go to return to Robotropolis. Tails stops Sonic. Sonic then tells Robot Sally that they have to have man talk, and Robot Sally leaves without any objection. Tails tells Sonic that the Mobian is not Sally. That Sonic, however, believes that Tails just had a bad dream because Sal has been stressed. Sonic, Rotor, and Bunny then proceed to Robotropolis, where they disarm a chassis off a hover unit. Where they do a high four. This is his thing. And when Sonic tries to do it with Robot Sally, he gets slapped off his feet, foreshadowing the slap that comes later in the Archie series.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Rotor then surmises that Robotnik's forces seem to know their every move, and Sonic agrees and attempts to give Robot Sally to do the he attempts to give Robot Sally the handshake. Excuse me. However, when Robot Sally does not know what to do, Sonic says out loud that she's a fake. In retaliation, Robot Sally pushes Sonic and runs away while shooting explosive lasers out of her finger. Sally then excretes some kind of mega muck, his words, to ground Sonic. And before Sonic can attack, Bunny's action karate kick kicks Robot Sally off screen and then pulling Sonic out of the mega muck. Robot Sally, still on the run, is cornered by Sonic, who by use his power ring starts circling around her, and Robot Sally is too focused on Sonic and overheats and explodes. Rotor, surprised by this, then suggesting reprogramming her, because he knows how to reprogram Robotnik tech, I guess. I guess it's all created by Uncle Chuck, so you don't have to think about it too much. So, back at Robotnik HQ, they continue to have more power issues, Smoke halting Sally's roboticization process, again. And nearby, Sonic uses Robot Sally's finger to laser her way in, swapping reprogrammed Robot Sal with regular Sal robot. Sonic and Sally reappear on one of Robotnik's monitors, ridicule them as they escape with a power ring, and Snippy then tells Robotnik that the roboticization process went bad, with robots Sally laser fingering, destroying the whole place. Back in Knothole, Sonic, Rotor, and Bunny are lifted up in the air by lesser-known freedom fighters, where Sally later meets up with Tails, still sus. But somehow Sally still knows that he wants the funny kiss, and does her witch bedtime scary witch voice as Tails embraces Sally. Sonic jokingly says Sally might still be a fake. Sally then kisses Sonic, still mocking. Sonic takes Tails and exits off screen, saying she's the wrong one. Wink, wink. Sally fumes. End of episode. Now, I know that was a lot to go through in one sitting, but yes. My review of this, A+. I love this episode.
I give it an A minus. If I'm being really harsh, I'd give it a B plus. But it's a really enjoyable episode. If you can, more cynical, more critical critics than myself would probably nitpick it apart for the fact, like, oh yeah, all this coincidental that Sally was not roboticized, that she was able to make it through the whole thing till then. But it's fine. It's a great episode. You get some fun bunny moments. You get to see Rotor. So, by now, in the proper time, context of episodes, the whole team's been introduced. We kind of get the personalities. Obviously, it's, Ben Hurst is one of the big names associated with the show, and, how appropriate is it that his first real episode is the episode that basically, for all intents and purposes, sets up the whole Sonic Sally dynamic. I mean, they flirted a little bit in the previous episodes, but this is an episode where it kind of almost implies that they're dating but not dating.
Yeah. I can't remember what your original review was, but yeah, I still said A+. Unfortunately, probably you can tell by the tone of my voice, I'm in a bit of a hurry, but we will continue this episode with 3 more episodes next week, hopefully with a shorter synopsis. And this is my first time kind of doing this for this show, so I'll figure out a way
if you want us to do kind of more brief summaries and more discussion, or if you want the full episode breakdowns, let us know in the comments, and we'll take that forward going forward.
And all right. Yeah, so just to let you know, you can find us on the various social media sites of Twitter, Tumblr, Blue Sky, and the rest. So, what are we ending out on, Malzilla? I got to get going.
Let's warp Sonic out of here.